Sometimes a story is just a story, but more often than not, they are a lesson cloaked in entertainment. The stories I share here are definitely the latter. Some are fact, some are fiction, all are beneficial. Hello, my name is Earl Breon, and you are listening to the Leadership Chronicles. Today's story will be about the wall at Thermopylae. If you've ever seen the movie 300, then you're at least familiar with the basics of this battle. You see, the year is 480 BC, and the vast Persian Empire has its eyes fixed squarely on Greece. Approximately 10 years earlier, the Persian Empire was repelled when the Greeks won an infamous battle at Marathon. This put a sour taste in the Persians' mouths and put Greece squarely in their crosshairs. So in August of 480 BC, the Persian Empire invaded. Now, it's not known if they knew the strategic advantage of that time frame, but chances are pretty good they did. And what those advantages were was that there were two important festivals going on in Greece. One, more relevant to the Spartans, was the festival of Carneia. One that was relative to all of Greece were the Olympic Games. Both of these festivities had truces built into their remembrances. So this meant that the Persian Empire could act without the Greeks being able to take any significant action. Now, with the seriousness of this Persian threat, the two kings of Sparta and the 5 elected ephors, think of them as kind of a small congress, sought to authorize an advance scouting party to delay the Persian advance until the events of the Carneia and the Olympic Games had passed and the full might of the Greek army could be gathered. This scouting party would have one mission: block the pass known as Thermopylae, or the Hot Gates. King Leonidas gathered 300 of his most trusted royal guard that met very specific criteria. For instance, they had to have sons to carry on their family names, because everyone knew that this was going to be a one-way trip. On the way from Sparta to the Hot Gates, they collected a few other Greeks along the way that had gotten permission to join. It's estimated about the time they reached Thermopylae that there were around 5,000 to 8,000 total troops. The Persian army had numbers estimated in a range from 200,000 to 300,000, all the way up to over 2 million. Anyway, all of that is just backstory from what I want you to really focus on with the rest of this story. And that's the building of a wall along the narrow path that they had to defend. You see, reinforcing this wall would be a great strategic advantage since it would effectively even the playing field if done correctly. By choking down the pass, only so many of the Persian army could engage the Greeks at one time. Now, sure, everybody knew that the Persians would eventually still win by attrition, but it wouldn't be an easy fight, and they could hold out until the festivals were over. So as they were trying to decide where and how to reinforce this important wall, how do you think they came to the decision? Well, some would guess that King Leonidas, being a king, told them where to build the wall. Those people would be wrong. King Leonidas gathered his leaders around and asked them what they thought. That was it. He asked the question, and then he listened to the discussion. Everybody had an opinion. Some matched, some contradicted, but he listened to them all. Now, as you can imagine, as happens in many conversations, there reached a point where discussion and debate turned into griping and yelling. It was at this point that Leonidas finally weighed in again. What did he say? Nothing. He got up from where he was sitting. He walked over to a pile of rocks, picked one up, carried it over to a spot on the ground, and placed it. He then returned, grabbed another rock, and did the same thing. After doing this a few times, the light bulb went off with the rest of the council. The decision had been made. This was where the reinforcements of the wall would be placed. His leaders immediately began organizing their troops to build around where the king had laid the foundation. Now, why is this one little piece such a powerful lesson for you? First, you have to learn how to ask the right questions to get discussion going. When you do that, that is how you get innovation flowing. And innovative environments mean resilient organizations. So think about what the organization's goals and values are and ask the appropriate questions to get the team moving toward them. Second, once you ask the question, then it's time to listen. If you ask the question and give your opinion right away, then people are likely to follow suit with what you think. If that's what the boss thinks, then let's not contradict him or her. So then what happens is you really get an echo chamber. You don't get valuable discussion. If you just ask the question and then just listen, you can truly hear all the varying points of view. Sure, there will be a time to provide your own feedback, but right at the beginning is not it. Sit back, take in all that information, and then when the time is right, make a decision. Finally, it's not enough to just make the decision. You have to take action. Leonidas was a king after all, so he could have easily decided where to build and then barked an order. Chances are pretty good you've worked for someone like that in your life. But what makes this story truly special is that he took the first actions. He committed to a path, set the example, and led the efforts from the front. When your people see you doing this, it resonates with them and it generates buy-in. If the leader believes in it enough to get their hands dirty, then this really means something to the organization. Now I'll leave you with these questions. As a leader, how comfortable would you be asking the questions and just actively listening without jumping in? Do you trust your team enough with that level of input? If not, why not? Team members, how would you view the leader who did this over a leader who asked the questions, then gave their plan and tried to influence the conversation to make sure their plan was the one chosen? Finally, which one of these two paths do you believe achieves the best results? So there you have it, a story from 480 BC that highlights the importance of asking the right questions, actively listening to your team, and taking that information and turn it into real, meaningful action. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Leadership Chronicles. To continue the discussion, find me on Twitter at Earl_Breon, Facebook at facebook.com/laymanleadership, all one word, or email me at podcast@earlbreon.com.